Hey guys and girls, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate your company. Today we've got a lot of conversation about lenses today. Now, right now I'm shooting on a 50mm 1.8 S-line lens from Nikon, and I've got that on the Z6 Mark II. And it's filming me right now, and I love that lens. It's a great lens. I've had it for a long time. The thing about the 50mm is so versatile. It's lightweight, focuses well, it's sharp, and just a great lens to have. So I highly recommend the 50 1.8 S-line lens from Nikon. I've got it and I think it's fantastic, and I'm not letting that go in any hurry. I've owned many Nikon S-line lenses, everything from the 20mm 1.8, 35 1.8, 50, 85. I've had the 24 to 70, both the f4 version and the 2.8 version, and the S-line 70 to 200 2.8. And that was a magnificent lens too. So I've owned many of the S-line lenses. So I know how they perform, including the 50 1.2, which is a brilliant lens, but a bit bulky and heavy to carry around every day. So I ended up moving on from that, but a great lens all the same. So there's nothing wrong with the Nikon lenses. I've owned a lot of them, if not the majority of them, and I can highly recommend them as quite excellent. The reason I'm talking about Viltrox lenses today is because they're a great budget alternative, and that's what I want to run you through. I'm not saying in any way they are superior to Nikon, because they are not. Nikon lenses are definitely a 9 out of 10, excluding, of course, very high-end cinematic lenses and Leica lenses and so on that you're paying $10,000 to $20,000 for a pop. Obviously, they're going to be 10 out of 10s because they're very expensive and high quality, but the general Nikon S ranges is definitely a 9.5 out of 10. These lenses I'm going to show you through today, I'm going to give them about an 8 out of 10, and that's very much also about not only the image quality, which is quite good for their value, their price, but also generally the value for money, which is astoundingly great. So I'm going to run you through some of these lenses, and I'll start you off with the first one I pull out of the bag. And I bought 4 of these lenses just in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to show you through the range that I have, which was starting at 24. So it goes from 24 to 85. So here we have a 1.8 version lens. It's an f1.8. It's this one here is the 24mm. It has its, as you see, little lens cap there, and of course your hood. And one thing I found very interesting, apart from the fact, of course, obviously they give you a protection for the rear as well, but it's a nice wide aperture, 1.8, and also notice the metal mount. So the metal mount is very good because it enables you to have confidence it's going to stay on and be strong, and it gives a professional feel to it, unlike these plastic mounted lenses. They work fine, make no mistake, but just metal makes you feel a bit more professional, doesn't it? And also here we have a USB port, so you can always use firmware updating to update the lenses as they should need to be. So that's fantastic. I love the metal mount. I love the USB for upgrading. The only downside I would say with this Viltrox lenses as a budget lens is they're not weather sealed. There's no weather sealing there. So in that way you have to just be a little bit careful in what conditions you take them out in. Now, I've never had any experience with bad weather because I don't take photos in bad weather. Quite frankly, I like my photo to be a positive experience for myself as well. So if the weathering is pretty poor, well, I'm not going to go out anyway. I'm not going to go out in a windstorm or a rainstorm to take photos. So really, weather sealing is pretty much irrelevant for me. If I need a lens that is weather sealed, I can always use the 50mm 1.8 Nikon S-line lens, which is weather sealed. But for general purpose photography that I do, that doesn't concern me at all. But these are well constructed, so I'm sure they're going to hold up to 90% of your situation. So anyway, another interesting little feature that I thought was cool about the lens is that when you buy these Viltrox lenses for Nikon, as I have done, they've been giving me these free clear filters. They're just a UV filter. Now, they really do nothing for a modern lens. They're not really relevant in any way as far as filtration, but what they do provide is an extra element of protection to the front element. So you're less likely to damage the front element by having maybe your car keys rattle around in your camera bag by mistake. You've forgotten to put them in there and they rattle around scratching the front element. This way, the worst thing they're going to do is scratch this little free filter I got, and I can always just unscrew that and throw it away. So that way I can't worry about any image degradation to my lenses. So anyway, they give you all the protection you need, the hoods, the caps and so on, and generally their feel and performance is very good. Now, illustrated on this one because I have it in my hand right now, but they also have a manual aperture ring that you can use on the lens. It's a good feel to it. It's quite firm. It doesn't just, you're not just knocking it and it moves. You actually have to give it quite a decent rotation to make it move, but you do have the option of changing aperture manually on the lens if you should want to. which is a feature you don't get on Nikon, I suppose. You would have to use one of their auxiliary rings and program that for that feature if you wish to, but you could. But on this one here, you give it a little click. It does have one click, and that is a click to A, which is then gives you the automatic feature, do everything through the camera. So if you want to change your aperture through the camera, put it on A. If you want to do it manually, you just use the ring as you wish. But that was an interesting feature. There is no on-off switch for manual or automatic, or manual focus or autofocus, but you can do that in camera anyway if you want to make any modifications to that. Just use your I menu. But the feel of it feels quite weighty. It feels like it's metal. It feels like it's got quality glass in it. It doesn't feel cheap and plasticky and nasty. So even though they're a budget-friendly lens, they're not expensive, I wouldn't say in any way they're cheap, as in cheap quality. They feel very good. They feel substance in the hand, a respectable weight for their size, not overly heavy or cumbersome, and I like the general presentation of them. I think they look terrific. So that was the first one, the 24. Here I'm going to show you now the 35mm. It has exactly the same features. Everything about it is pretty much the same feel, the same look, the same options. The lens hood here is a little larger. That's appropriate for the tighter focal length. Now we've got down to 35. Of course, you still get the hood and you get the clear filter. There's a clear filter there that I can take off, and that just protects the front element again. If I'm ever worried about image degradation, or I want to put a circular polarizer on, or an ND filter of any sort, you can unscrew that if you wish to, or you can just put it over the top of that one, because this has a filter thread internally in that as well. So you can always just add another filter straight on, or remove it anytime you want to. It's quite quick and easy to do so. But I like the fact that they provide that extra layer of protection for your front element. Why not protect it if you can? It doesn't cost you anything in image quality. So there we go, that's the 35. So we've got those two there. Next one I'm going to show you is the 50mm. And again, it's all exactly the same scenario. We've got the protective UV filter there. You've got your cap, you've got your hood. I do like the feel of the hood. The hood does actually feel solid enough in its plastic. And also what happens is it has a discernible click. So when you put it on, if I take it off again, we put it on, it clicks into place, so it doesn't just bump off easy. It's going to stay on, and you know you put it on correctly because of that clicking feeling. So it's quite a handsome lens. I think all of these lenses look very nice. Again, they all have the metal mount and the USB for updates in the future, firmwares you can do on your computer. So that's a fantastic option, and I think they all look really good too. They're all very, very similar in appearance. There's not much difference in the size, weight. Certainly all the filter sizes are the same. It's all 55mm filter for these three, so all the filters are interchangeable. So I think that's magnificent. What a great option that is. Makes life very easy. The other lens I'd like to show you through is visually right now is the 85, and that's substantially different to all the other lenses. It's a whole different make. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a better quality build, but it feels very good in the hand, I can tell you that. The actual first impressions you get is it feels like a quality unit. There's a lovely big front element there. Now again, they give you those free filters which can protect the lens, which is fantastic. But there's, you see, the front element is actually quite large in that lens, if you can pick it up there. So it's got a big front element. Again, you've got the metal mount, the USB for charging. It's not weather sealed, but it does look really, really nice. It's a good quality feel to it. It feels metallic. It feels solid. It doesn't feel like a cheap, nasty lens. So I'm just going to put the filter back on. Make sure that's all safe. Protects the front element now. If I forget the lens cap or it drops off, it's still protected now and safe. And of course they give you a rear cap as well to protect that. This one here has no manual aperture ring on this, which is actually pretty practical really, because let's face it, with an 85mm, most of the time you're doing portraits with something like this, and it's going to be at 1.8. So you've got to want its widest aperture all the time. So if you need to change the aperture, you just do it in camera and change it with the rules. But I find that this lens here is one of my favorites of the collection because it's small, it's light, but it gives a beautiful rendering image. It looks fantastic on the camera. When you put it on the Nikon, it looks brilliant and performs really well. So that's what I should do. I'll just show you what they look like actually on the camera. And of course I'll be using mostly these for portraiture, so I'll be using the Z9 most of the time. So let's just have a look here. They do give you, fortunately, a little dot. You can see the little dot on top of the lens there to help you line up when you're mounting it. And there it goes, clips on nice and sturdy and tight. And there's no issue with the mounting because it's a Z mount. So it clips straight on, everything functions straight away, and it works beautifully. And the focus, trying to hear if there's any noise. Put it up to the microphone, tell me if you can hear anything. It's almost silent, isn't it? I mean, I really have to put it right up to my... I can't hear anything, really. It's a slight whirring sound, but it's so silent and quiet. Well, you'd have to be a bit of an exaggerator to say that that was a problem. I think that's very silent and certainly equal in any way to the Nikon lenses. In fact, when I compared the sound of the 50mm focusing, the Nikon 50S line lens, and the sound of the 50 Viltrox, I couldn't tell any discernible difference in the volume. There was a slight tonal difference. One's a little bit like a grindier sound, the other one's a bit more of a droning sound, but the volume is the same. So it doesn't interfere in any way in your video. You wouldn't notice it at all, you wouldn't hear it. So I just want to reassure you that the video sound with the autofocus is no issue at all. It's quite snappy in focus. They pop into focus quickly and accurately, and I find them very good. Now, are they as fast and sharp as the Nikon ones? I don't think they are. I think they're about, let's say these are about an 8 out of 10 for sharpness and speed for autofocus. The Nikon S lines would be a 9 out of 10. So they're good enough. I find it more than suitable for the work I do. I don't do high-end sports action. So to me, I'm not chasing Olympic athletes or filming horses at full gallop very often at all. In fact, almost never. So to me, for what I need them to do, which is for portrait use, where I've got a model and I tell the model to stand here and in that way, and they do, autofocus speed's irrelevant anyway. But it's more than capable, be reassured of that. So that's enough of me yapping on and talking about all these lenses for a moment and showing you them. What I'd like to do now is really show you some samples. So I'm going to show you some sample images that I've taken with them, and I do also a direct comparison between the 50 1.8 S line lens that I'm using right now, the Nikon version, and the 50 1.8 Viltrox, and you'll see them side by side and you'll see the difference. So is there a difference? There is a slight difference. If you're going up to, say, 150% magnification, you're zooming right in on the fine print, and you're having is it a bit softer, the Viltrox? Yes, it is slightly, but not anything that's going to make any difference. And I believe that if you're needing to go nearly 200% magnification to notice any difference, well, really there is no significant difference. Nothing that's going to make any difference to your photography. So let me run you through those samples, and I'll let you evaluate for yourself what you think of the quality of their imagery. Now, I think what you'll notice here is when we looked at the 24mm, you'll notice that the 24 has a bit more of distortion, but that's because of the focal length that it is. It's wide, and of course you have to get in really close to fill the frame, as I did here. So when you fill a frame with an 85, I can be 3 meters away, but when you're trying to fill the frame of these boxes with a 24, you're only several inches away. So obviously you're going to get more distortion because of your proximity as well. So I don't think that's in anything to do with real world imagery. If you're taking a scenery shot, a wide angle shot of a landscape, you're not going to notice that distortion anywhere near as severe. Of course, you can use in-camera corrections as well to help fix that. The images that I'm showing you now, these are images that have not been altered other than cropping to get them exactly the same as best I can. So there might be a 5 to 10% crop and horizontal vertical adjustment just to make sure that they're the same sort of structure of image from 24 to 35 to 50 to 85 so that they look the same. But there's not much of a crop and there's no real corrections in camera. Very, very modest. So I hope you enjoyed those images. They are useful, I think, tools just to get a vague idea of how they're performing. It's never the same as looking at them in your own monitor. When I look at these images in my monitor, I want you to understand that I have a 4K monitor. It's a 40-inch monitor. It's this big. It's huge. And I'm sitting like this far away from it, and I'm struggling to see a difference between the Viltrox and the Nikon. So it's there is a difference, but it's pretty modest. I wouldn't concern yourself over image quality in any way. And look, to be honest with you, we're talking about image quality here. If you're talking about portraits, and that's the context of, say, the 50 and the 85 particularly, you don't want too much detail. Really, you don't. You want to really soften it. There's a reason why the new Nikon camera bodies have what they call skin softening options, 1, 2, and 3. Because when you're doing a facial photography, particularly a headshot, the last thing a young lady wants you to do is focus in on every blood vessel in their eye. The last thing they want is to expose every pore in their skin and every little hair or blemish they have. So that's just insulting, really. So it's actually nice to have something that's not too sharp that actually makes them look like they've got some sort of hideous deformity. And that's what too much detail can do. So there's nothing wrong with a little bit softer in a portrait lens. Some say it's character. These are not character lenses, they're sharp lenses. But I'm just saying don't obsess with sharpness when it comes to portraiture, because it's only really insulting to the subject to expose them for every flaw and fault and pore in their skin. It's not flattering at all. In fact, I encourage softening the detail when you're in the editing process, and I think that's a lot kinder and more flattering for the individual, man or woman. Now, in context of the filters I was talking about before, for the 35 and the 50 and the 24 that I have on the table here, I have a range of filters here, some Hoya filters, and these are ND filters, and I have here a 4, ND4, ND8 and ND16, but they're all 55. And so you only need these 3 filters, and you can encompass any sort of filtration you need. You carry these around in the bag, they're very small, very modest, together like that, and that's every filter you will ever need for your video use or long exposure photography. So having the same filter thread, that's a brilliant idea. Nikon do the same thing, don't worry. They're 50, 35, and I believe they're 24 as well, all have the 62mm filter thread, so that's a great option. So I think that's a clever thing that they've done to make everything uniform. The lenses are relatively uniform in size and weight and volume, so they fit into your camera bag really well. Unlike the Sigma lenses I had in the past, I had these Sigma Art 1.4s. Very good lenses, no mistaking that, but they were bulky. And not only were they bulky themselves, because they were a 1.4 aperture, they were vastly larger, but you would also then have to have the FTZ adapter on the end of them, which made them even bigger. So that was actually quite frustrating. So I've kept my FTZ adapter, even though I have all these Z-mount lenses now, but I use that for my zoom lenses or some of my older lenses that I have for, just nostalgic state, if you like. So I kept the FTZ adapter. You never know when that's going to come in handy in the future if I decide to buy some cheap lenses online for the novelty factor. But I don't use it really anymore for my regular work, because everything's Z-mount, that makes everything extremely convenient. So while we're on the subject of these Viltrox lenses, there is another Viltrox range of products I would like to show you. So yes, I have quite a few of them. This is the one I was talking about earlier. I was talking about the 20mm 1.8, or 2.8, sorry, my fault. So this little Viltrox lens, it's a great little kit lens. Again, you have the metal mount and the USB port for firmware upgrades if you like. It's very lightweight and compact for a 20mm. I have a filter on it there. I'll just take that off for the time being to show you the element. But there it is there. And like all the others, 52mm filter thread on this one. And that's fine because I have a heap of 52s anyway, because I used to use them for my, the 28mm 2.8 Nikon lens. Now they had the plastic mount, not the metal mount, that old lens I used to have, but I've moved on from that one now. I don't have that because I got a 24 and a 35 and a 20. I don't need the 28, it's just too many lenses. But this 20mm ultra wide is a great thing to have in the bag when you may or may not use it, but it's so lightweight, compact, and doesn't obstruct anything. It's good just to carry with you in case. So on the odd time I need an extra wide, an ultra wide like this, I have one of those. This was $250 brand new. Very inexpensive. So I highly recommend owning it because it is very good quality. You get the metal mount, and the image quality at 2.8 that you have with this is fantastic value for money, and I highly recommend the 20mm just to carry around with you in case. It's a no-brainer to me. You can't lose by buying it. At a couple of $100, why wouldn't you just have one? I think it's a great purchase. And of course it comes with all the protection you need. I've got a UV filter here, so that's just the option I've chosen with that one. The other thing I wanted to show you was this Viltrox product here, which is a macro converter. So I can use a Nikon lens on this, a Nikon Z mount lens. It's a Z mount arrangement. You notice that it has the wide aperture for Z mount, so it clips straight onto your Nikon Z9 or Z6 or anything else. Has that mount, and also the other advantage of it I like is that it still retains autofocus functionality. So if you're using, of course, an autofocus lens, whether it be a Viltrox or a Nikon lens, you will still have autofocus when you use this as a macro adapter, if you want autofocus. Does this work? Yes, it works extremely well. You get multiple layers where you can choose minor magnification, join them together to get a greater magnification, and I find it works just extremely well. So I'm very happy with this as well. I highly recommend this, save you buying a macro lens. Yeah, so the advantage of this unit here is that you don't have to buy a specific macro lens, which can be quite expensive. To get a high quality macro lens, you could be looking at least $1,500. This here will cost me about $50, which is nothing really, isn't it? Small, lightweight, compacts down very, very well. And now what I can do is I can have this in my camera bag ready to go should I want to do some insects or rings or something small. And that's a great little asset to have. It weighs literally next to nothing. You know, I don't know what it is, 50 grams or something. It weighs very, very little, and it's quite compact and small. So I highly recommend. Most of these Viltrox products that I've tried are fantastic. I've yet to come across a Viltrox lens, regardless of its structure or price, I don't like. They are actually very good for what they are. And this is what I'm going to finish on. Why am I going to Viltrox? Well, I will show you. See these three lenses here. I'm going to place them here. These three lenses, all of these lenses I have purchased for $400 on average each. So it might have been $410, $390, $415, the other one $390. All around $400. They give you the UV filter free as well. They give you great carry bags and packaging. The boxing is fabulous and fantastic, really highly padded. So if you keep the boxes, you can keep the lenses safe when traveling interstate or whatever very well, because they're hugely protected. $1,200 it cost me for these three lenses. That's 1,200 Australian dollars, or about 800 US, thereabouts. The 150mm Nikon S line lens would have cost me $1,200 brand new. So I just want you to think about that. You can have one Nikon S line lens, or you can have three of these Viltrox lenses. Which are you going to choose? Now that's up to you. That's your call. If you've got the money to spend on a high quality, high-end Nikon lenses, I absolutely 100% encourage you to do so. I've got one. I used to have all of them. I used to have the whole range of the Nikon S lenses, and I'll probably buy more yet again. But this value for money wise is unbeatable, unbeatable. $400 and you get a high quality Nikon Z mount lens with autofocus and all those features. Why wouldn't you do it? Well, I did. I went and bought 4 of them. Hence I've also got the one here on the camera. Apart from that, I got the 20mm and the adapter for macro photography. All so inexpensive, it's worth having a go and seeing what you think. I'm going to give you an evaluation in the months ahead for long-term use, but I know that they're going to perform very well and I'm going to be happy with them. And that doesn't mean there's exclusivity to Viltrox. I have no affiliated links with them. They don't pay me anything. I bought these out of my own money, out of my own initiative to try them out. And I'm trying them out also for you guys, so you guys can get some real-world experience to know if you should take the chance on them. And I'm telling you, I don't believe there is any chance taken. They work very well. I think they've got a great build quality. Just because they're inexpensive doesn't mean they're cheap and nasty, and I think you'd be very happy with your choices. So thank you for having the time with me to let me go through my decision in buying some of these lenses. I look forward to sharing some experience with you in the future, and thank you very much for your time. Have a great day, guys.